Yeah, so being a banker is cool or whatever, but me and the boys have almost figured out how many bites it takes to get through a dwarven rock cake, and when I break my teeth, I can just recall back to when it didn't hurt. I should have stayed in school. Arguably, some of the strongest and most popular relics, Banker's Note and Last Recall, have made a return, but this time, there's a little bit of a twist. Let's briefly look at the descriptions of these, and then we can get into the specifics. It's not Last Recall, it's Total Recall. And upon choosing this relic, you get the Crystal of Echoes. This item can be used to store any single coordinate alongside your hit points, prayer, and special attack energy, and then you can teleport back to it whenever and it restores your stats back to what they were. This does not work with inside an instance though, and there's probably going to be a lot of confusion about what's an instance and what's not, and what works and what doesn't, but we'll get into all that. And there's a lot of places where you can't store coordinates, like in certain quest areas, mini games, things like that. It's not legitimately game breaking. There are still some rules to it. And then we have Banker's Note. Upon choosing this relic, you get the Banker's Note. This lets you note and unnote items anywhere in Gielinor. You just use the items on it and you can actually tell it what quantity you want as well, so you don't have to do all. You can do like 3 karambwans at a time if you want to do that. And it's basically that simple. As long as the item can be noted, it can be unnoted. Well, and it can be noted too. You can do both. All right, now let's get a little more specific. Let's talk about Total Recall first, because I think it's the one that you can have the most weird spots with it. It might work here, it might not work here. And also, it's actually been changed, whereas Banker Note, I think, is basically the exact same as last league. I want to go ahead and say, for people that have been playing for a few leagues now, if you remember, Last Recall came out and it was mind-blowing, game-breaking. Oh my gosh, I can just go to ZMI, use all my pure essence, and then immediately go back to a bank and then just keep going back and forth, back and forth. Wow, this is game-breaking. This is so fast. And then Banker's Note came out and everyone's like, oh, Last Recall sucks. It's slower than Banker's Note, which yes, it is, but guys, still remember how crazy it was that you could just instantly go to your bank and then come back and keep rune crafting like that. Like, that's something that you should not forget. We only think that isn't as strong because we had something that's a little bit better, but it's still really good as is. So some of these different skilling activities, you should probably keep that in the back of your mind that, oh yeah, I have to go to a bank. It's probably not that big of a deal depending on what teleport relics you have. I think it's important to talk about the fundamentals of recall and what is good about being able to recall. What do you get out of that? And traditionally, that's mostly been to go back and forth between 2 locations for an extended period of time. So being able to talk to a Slayer Master, teleport to your spot, do your whole task, and then go back to the Slayer Master, that's not really something I would consider. I mean, it's definitely not a bad thing, but you're just not getting a ton of leverage out of it because you're not really doing the whole back and forth thing. Also, NPC contact is kind of a thing that exists. So where does it shine? Well, anytime you're doing anything with items that can't be noted, obviously Banker's Note is not going to do anything. You might as well pick Total Recall. But what's really been good about this is being able to alternate between an activity or a bank to put things up or grab new things. Like if you get a ton of drops from one thing, you don't necessarily want to have 12 different things noted in your inventory. Like, it's cool that they're noted, but they still take up space. But what I personally think is the biggest thing, this is where I'm trying to theory craft with everything, is being able to teleport away to your house and restore your stats, or in leagues it's more likely Ferox or Narda, and then jump back into the fight without using any supplies at all. And this method has been massively buffed with the new Total Recall, because you can just pick a spot. The example they used is you sit outside of Zulrah, you save your stats, you go in, you do Zulrah. By the end of the kill, maybe you're poisoned or you're low in health or you want your special attack back, you recall and you're good to go again. Now, Zulrah's maybe not the biggest thing for this, but what I think would be crazy is if you picked Wildy. A lot of those bosses are not in an instance. I don't think there's anything here about not being able to use it in combat. I don't know why, if it's just a teleport that you wouldn't be able to. So I think you can effectively be in a boss arena, mark your memory, dump all your special attacks, like just go crazy, and then immediately recall back to your full stats, do another save at that full stats, and just keep going over and over and over. Like, this is effectively an infinite special attack relic, or an infinite health or prayer relic. Like, this does so much, but that's only when you can use it. That's the biggest thing. And now I'm gonna get into the downsides of this. Instances will screw you up on this so much, and a huge thing with this new league is that echo bosses exist and they're going to be instanced. So if you can get a 1-kill trip, that's totally fine. You're doing great. It does not matter. But if these bosses are hard and you kind of want to bring some extra supplies in with you, you're not going to be able to get anything out of that. Because if you teleport out to gain all your health back and then you go into the instance, I'm pretty sure they're going to reset all their stats. So you're kind of taking a gamble if you're picking this, especially early into the league, because people aren't going to know what the stats are in these echo bosses and what you're feasibly going to be able to get away with. For all I know, if you pick Coliseum, for example, you might basically need to do Banker's Note unless you're just super good at the game. So that's where I'm at right now with Total Recall. It sounds so much fun, especially for Wildy. There's a lot of things that I want to do with it there, but I really don't want to get stuck on echo bosses. Like, I think for me, the most fun thing you can do in leagues is break the game. A lot of people, they talk about trying to make these like balanced builds in leagues. Like, oh, if you hate doing this thing, you should pick that relic. Dude, I don't think people normally actually have fun doing that. The fun things in league are like whenever Last Recall was first a thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can just infinitely rune craft like this. This is amazing. I'm getting so much XP. Like, it's the points where you break the game and you just do crazy stuff. And so being able to literally teleport in circles around your enemy in the wilderness and just infinitely dump Voidwaker specs on them, that sounds pretty fun. Like, that's not a thing I will ever be able to do in the main game. But that is not to say that Banker's Note cannot break the game either. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Right off the bat, I admit it, I was a fire sale user. I did not pick Banker's Note. I am so sorry. This might be biased, me talking about Banker's Note. I did make a second account where I used it, so like I still have some experience with it. But Banker's Note is really good and useful until it's not. And then it's just kind of sitting in your inventory. Have you ever played a UIM? Have you ever just had things sit in your inventory? Like, it's not a big deal that it's here and I'm not using it, but it's like, could I have been using Last Recall right now, or like just doing something else? I think the most obvious good thing with taking Banker's Note is it basically does Total Recall for skilling, but better. Yes, I could take these logs to my bank very quickly and get right back, or I could just click the button once and note the logs, or the fish, or the ore, or whatever. I can unnote all these bars. Like, there's a lot of utility that you can do. It's just very good, generally speaking. You really cover your bases when you take Banker's Note. With Total Recall, you can restore your health and prayer, but with Banker's Note, if you're in an instance, I can just get more prayer pots. I can just make more food. Something really big to consider with this, though, is during Trailblazer Reloaded, Banker's Note and Fire Sale were at tier 3. Whenever I took Fire Sale, I had no money and I got infinite money. My friends that had Banker's Note, they didn't get money for a while. They didn't get supplies for a while. I was able to immediately just go buy cooked food, but they had to actually go out and get those things. So if this is a tier 3 or similar, like if you're getting this really early, then you're not even going to have anything to note or unnote. You're not going to be able to get infinite health or prayer. So in terms of PVM, you're not going to be able to really like skip ahead of things in the same way you'd be able to with Total Recall. I think Banker's Note really shines if you want to just be a little bit more AFK, save a few clicks or steps, or if you want to do long content. If you want to jump into some chambers and just have infinite supplies, if you want to go through Inferno, not have to worry about if you're managing your prayer correctly, if you want to do Coliseum, you want to fight the echo bosses, as long as you have the supplies, you hypothetically are gonna be good. There's certainly a lot of interesting combos you can do depending on the areas that you picked. With both of these, I want to ask you guys what you think. Let's look at Wilderness, for example. Being able to use Total Recall to just infinitely spec down Corporeal Beast sounds like a ton of fun, but also maybe you want to go kill Vedion and get 150 noted dragon bones from him and just run over to the Chaos Altar and get some XP really quick. But then again, you can pay to have them unnoted. So a lot of these things, there's a lot of back and forth with, oh, well, it only takes me a few extra steps to do the alternative to it. Oh, but if I do it like this, then it saves me a few steps. There's a lot that's going on with these, and I think this is probably going to be the hardest choice for everyone to pick. Like, even at the end of leagues, I would not doubt if I'm still like, man, did I make the right choice? Like, I don't think there's going to be an obvious wall you're going to hit with either of these where you're like, oh my god, I screwed up so much. Like, both of these are really going to help you out, and it would really help me out if you subscribed to the channel and left a like. You know, I didn't ask for those last time, but if you liked it, I'd like a thumbs up, please. If you guys have any crazy synergies planned with either of these relics, I would love to hear about them, because my plans are always up in the air. Jagex is releasing so many different things. I'm constantly changing what I think I'm going to do. So give me some ideas, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.